And you mentioned that this is quite an old. This is an old tradition for them. This is something that they've been doing for years, generations, and also, it is intimately connected with the material as well. As you said, it's a local plant.
It's a local plant which grows mainly in their regions. But also in a lot of other countries, but it's something that kids start to do. So the men plant the seeds of palm trees, then they take the leaves down. The women start working on the leaves, and then it becomes something that they do from village to village.
Do they do this? Is it a family? Is it a family economy? Like, do whole families then work potentially on this one kind of production?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can recognize the pattern from from one family, from one clan to the other one, so you don't need to sign your product, which is very interesting because someone knowledgeable from the culture, from the area, would know actually where this come from.
It's amazing.
That's actually what I was going to ask, if there is different like between.
It's amazing because I off the top of my head can't think of any kind of craft or artisanry in where I'm from where you have it's so connected to the place. This particular craft is so connected to the place. It's been around for a long time. I guess food, maybe like winemaking. Winemaking would have maybe like a similar kind of tradition where it's grounded in the earth. It's grounded in what is produced locally, and it's been going. I mean, the vines themselves are thousands of years old.
And if you know wine, you will definitely be able to
that's
tell.
the thing.
For sure.
You have to be a connoisseur to kind of reach a different level of understanding, which is really nice.
But you can tell like
initiation.
Yeah, I mean, if you were like more or less well versed, you don't have to be like a enologist or whatever, but I can tell if I drink a wine from the north of Portugal or the south of Portugal.
Well, you definitely know Madeira. If you drank Madeira, you would know a good Madeira.
But I mean, Port and Madeira wine, and they're all different stuff because like red is red,
Sure.
It's all still red, but like they just, some of them, they're a bit more, I don't know, they just got more strong body, or like they're, like French wine normally is like it's a lot more light and.
Sure. Well, that's fascinating then, because obviously you didn't grow up in the Congo. You would be going there as a foreigner essentially, and I imagine. Well, you've mentioned that they knew you quite well, not to be a local.
Of course.
So what was that like then, to go into a place that you obviously have some connection to, but you're not overly familiar with, and also to jump into this world of craft and culture, which also is a new world for you. And as we said, like if you're thinking about wine as a metaphor for that, like to just throw yourself into like a world of wine and not know what the hell, who's making what, or how it's made, or how is that to like
being a beer drinker.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. That sounds like there's a lot of ambiguity in that. How did you prepare for that? Get on the ground and kind of like work your way through all that.
Well, if we come back to wine, which I like, I really like natural wines. So there are new generations of winemakers working with old grapes. Well, the definition is you don't have sulfate. So they're much lighter, they're a bit more juicier, but they taste very well. So I go fully for natural wine because I don't need the background, I don't need the whole knowledge. So if we come back to the freedom concept, I can definitely go into the natural wine culture because it's free, and you've got a new generation coming. They are setting their old criterias. They don't have the how do you say. They free themselves from the labeling and all
baggage,
stuff.
The baggage of the past,
but they do have it because they've got the knowledge. But they're freeing themselves from that, and this is the same approach I'm taking from Congo. Someone was in a matter of craft. Someone who's got also a bit of a Congolese identity, but something different because I didn't grow up there. But I can bring some different concepts. I can bring some different ways of behaving, and I'm freeing myself from their own social structure, their own structural structure, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And and I think as someone we grew up, you know, in between two places or in two places, that's what I can bring, you know. That's freedom. That's, you know, why don't you think about something? Why can't you challenge something? Because I'm free from your background, and you know I can bring something. I think that's what I can, and you know the other people like me can bring to the world, and by other people like me, I mean African diaspora. You know, if we choose to come back, we can bring different ways of doing things, and maybe, you know, that's our generation to take over, and maybe really work for the future of Africa.
I love that, because I love what you said about I can just go and I know what's important to me. So like with the natural wine, you might say, well, actually my body's important to me. I like wine. I don't want to destroy my body over wine and add the sugar and the sulfite, so I'm just going to drink wine that I think is best for my body. Or you might say, well, I want to support better agricultural practices, and so I don't need to worry really about all the other stuff. I can just focus on the values and the things that I care about, and I can make or purchase based on that. But when you go to Congo, and you say, well, I'm going to just try to bring that similar approach. I'm just going to bring my values and I'm going to try to do my best in that context. How do you do that? How do you do that in a way that doesn't completely disrupt what is already happening there for many generations culturally? And how do you work within that without, and also I've done work in international development where and there's a lot of issues in international development about going and trying to obviously impose a particular way of thinking, of doing, of working, and especially if you don't know that you're doing that. So how do you challenge yourself? How do you make sure that you do that in a way that works for them as well as you? And what was that process like for you? Or what is that process like for you in making sure that?
Yeah, making sure that works. Well, for me, it was important to the way we started the conversation when I arrived in Congo. Was by stating the values of, you know, why we're here, what do we want from it, and hopefully what are we taking out of it. And it was a round table, and it was about 14 people of us, and it was interesting that the first 3 words, or the top 3 words that came, was economic income, cultural identity, and transparency. And that was, you know, that was the 12 artisans, the 2 linguists plus me, so that was 16 people, me and my co-worker.
Your mother.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about your mom. That's why I thought let's just throw it out there.
Big subject. So it was nice because it was all of us thinking and coming and being on that table and saying, you know, this is what we want to take from it. And it was a completely different approach to what they were used to do and how they were used to work. Well, because on craft or design work, you don't ask someone, why are you here? Well, you know, obviously because I want to sell something. So that's very straightforward. But what I wanted it was for all of us to sit at the table and go beyond that, from a handcraft person, from a designer person. Why will you be taking from it? Well, for them, it was very adamant that the identity thing was prominent, was the most important. And then, you know, a different way of working, so the transparency, the horizontality that I want, and I think it's very important for the atelier. Me coming as a designer, and it was very interesting. At some point they were asking me if I was a student, you know, me with my camera and stuff. Are you doing some research work or something? But it was a bit of
Was this
case.
what the artisans were asking you?
Yeah. The one of the lead artisan, Maxime Mabudi, was asking, so it's your final year project or something? That was interesting.
That's interesting. Do you know why they asked you that? Why they assumed that?
Well, A, because I guess my mum was there, so you know, I was looking a bit younger, and B, because it was it sounded almost like, you know, interview process, a research type of thing. So not much, you know. They're used to people coming and say, I want this, I'm gonna pay this, and you know, and I'm gonna leave. Yeah. And me, I came with a different approach. I'd like us to do this. What do you think? I'd like us to do something like this. How important would it be for you?
Yeah.
So I was asking them to kind of, you know, give me some answers, and then we would start a discussion.